My name's Priscilla, and right here next to me is Ken. He's our videographer.
Ken?
Ken, yes.
Hi, Ken.
And we wanted to interview you because, as we understand it, you're a fourth-generation owner of Mitchell Farms, and your lovely daughter is here to help as well. And you were escorted here by Larry Fritz.
What?
And you were escorted here by Larry Fritz. We appreciate his help getting you here.
You might want to talk a little slower.
Oh, okay. Let's start off slowly. When were you born?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know? What year were you born?
You know when you were born?
Yeah, 91.
I was born in 1926.
Okay. And were you born on the farm you live?
Yes.
Do you know who delivered you?
I was not really paying attention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know if it was a doctor nearby or a midwife?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. I hear from a lot of residents around here that doctors from even Folsom Prison have delivered them in their home, so I just wanted to know about that. Who is your father?
My father?
Yeah, your father.
His name is Washington.
Washington? And what year was he born?
I'm not sure.
Okay, okay. Around what year?
Well, he was probably in, he had been in the Navy, and he probably was about maybe 1890s or something like that.
1890s, okay. And was he a longtime resident of Citrus Heights?
No.
Where was he born?
Seattle.
Seattle, okay.
Washington.
How did he get out here?
How?
Yeah, how did he make it out here to Citrus Heights?
Well, he probably transported in a car.
Yeah. Why do you want to come out here?
I don't know.
You don't know? Do you know how he met your mom?
It was through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay. And what line of work did he do?
He was a auto mechanic and up in Seattle they had a racing car that they used, and so he had experience with stuff like that.
That's interesting. So was it your mom who ran the farm?
Big pardon?
Was it your mom who ran the farm then?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather. And did your mom help him?
Yes.
Yes. What was her name?
Her name?
Uh-huh.
Bernice.
Bernice. And she was born around the 1890s too?
Probably.
I think it was about 1901.
Okay.
She graduated from San Juan in 1920. So.
She was an old timer.
What was her specialty on the farm? What was she really good at?
My mother?
Yeah, your
I
mom.
want to talk slower.
Okay.
She, whatever it took to run a farm.
She really was a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades?
Well, in those days when you had a farm, you had to be.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can I just remind you, you might want to mention, Pa, some of the things that you guys had, which was alfalfa, hay, cattle, cherries, grapes, things like that.
Is that what you want to know?
Yeah.
Well,
What did you fuss with most of the time on your at the farm? What crop did you mostly deal with during your time?
Oh, it was that kind of a farm that you just did everything had to be done. You didn't specialize in much of anything. You had to feed the animals and milk cows and the normal things that you do on a farm that's like in a country farm.
And so you said your grandpa ran the farm, even when your mom
Yes.
was alive. Okay. What was his name?
Edward.
Edward?
He had been a teamster.
Oh, my grandpa was a teamster too.
Hey, where did he go?
He was in the Bay Area, in Sonoma County. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather was in the wintertime, they'd go up to Desolation Valley and cut ice, and then in the summer they'd haul ice down to Sacramento, and he did that with his teamsters, his teams.
And so he did that in addition to running the farm?
Yeah.
So when he was out working, was it mostly your mom and his wife helping out?
I suppose I was really around watching.
Could you tell me more about your grandma? His wife?
Well, she was there.
Yeah, she was there. Did, so when he was off working, she would take charge of the farm?
Oh, someone had to take care of the animals, had to feed them, milk them, and stuff like that.
What kind of animals did you have on the farm?
Well, we had sheep, we had cows, and horses. These are draft horses because he was in teamster business.
Oh, yeah. That's good to know. And your grandma, so she was the second generation that lived there, right? And so her parents were the first ones to own the farm?
My great-grandfather acquired the farm in 1866.
Can you tell me anything you know about them?
I know that they had a deed for the property signed by Ulysses S. Grant.
Wow. I had read somewhere that they paid for it in gold coin. Is that true?
That's what I'm told, $1,600.
Yeah. And they were from England, right?
Yes.
Did anyone ever say why they wanted to come out here?
Come on, ask me something I know.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. So I would like to hear more about your grandpa because it sounds like he was pretty influential to you growing up.
Yeah, well, we all lived in the same farmhouse.
Oh, yeah. So you worked on the farm growing up. What did you do? Because I'm assuming you branched off and worked somewhere else before returning to the farm, correct? I'd read somewhere that you were in the military, you were in World War II, correct?
I was in World War II, in the Navy.
And I had read somewhere that you ended up in Washington, D.C., correct?
Yes, I did.
And that's where you met your wife?
Yeah.
Could you tell me about your time there?
Well, I had graduated from University of Colorado, and I went back there looking for a job, and there was one that I was directed to, I guess, the proper places. Anyway, there was a job an engineering job that I took, and so I was in there for, I guess, 2 or 3 years.
And so you studied engineering at the University of Colorado?
Yes.
What made you want to come back out here?
Are you kidding? I was, want to come home, I guess, so.
Yeah. You miss the farm, miss Mom?
No, I didn't. I was just, I was following, in those days you had, things were a lot more informal than they are today. And so I had a degree in engineering, and so I was looking for something along those lines. And I got a line on, or I actually went through several different places where they were hiring, but I didn't want that particular kind of work, so I kept looking, and I finally decided to take this job in Washington.
Okay. And so, what kind of experience did you gain there?
Well, I ended up having I got a job with an outfit that had a contract with the Navy Department, and we I was there about 2.5, 3 years, I think, and we were doing really specialized kind of work on Navy electronic equipment, and I ended up I had I don't know, 35, 40 guys working for me.
Oh, wow.
And we did a project that saved the Navy $90 million.
Could you tell me more about that?
Well, this is in the earlier days of electronics, and our equipment, all of our complex equipment like radar, the insides of radar and sonar and so on, used vacuum tubes. It was all vacuum tubes. There was no transistors, and in fact they didn't come out till about 1957. This was in, what was it, 1940, something, 42, 43. And then once that work was done, it didn't have to be repeated, because it was we developed a system of they replaced all kinds of spare parts options, and so anyway, I wanted to get back home, so I came back.
And you brought your girl too?
Yeah, I married her back there.
Mm-hmm. How'd she feel coming back out here to where you grew up?
How did she feel?
Yeah, did she enjoy her time?
Well, she was a young lady. She didn't know what it was like out here. Her mother said, "Are you taking my daughter out to that wilderness?" I was here.
Mm-hmm. That's so funny, because she said that because it was very urban over in D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably a year later, she was working for me.
Oh, wow.
I built some duplexes and put her in charge of them.
So did you create your own business once you came back out here?
It was easy to do.
Oh, okay. I spoke to our archivist, Tina, at the Orangeville History Museum, and she told me that you were a surveyor of the land in Citrus Heights.
I had a license, engineering contractor's license, and I actually built a couple of subdivisions. One was on Hazel, and south of Greenback, and one was in south of Greenback, on Greenback, the Huffman Acres, down near Folsom Boulevard.
Did you ever get the chance to survey the land in Orangevale?
I did jobs up here. I don't remember exactly everything we did. Well, I guess that would be Orangevale, wouldn't it, on Hazel's, the south of Greenback?
Yeah.
Well, that was one subdivision I did. I did a lot of subdivisions. Not just here, but traveled around. Rio Linda, I was in Ione, up north. I did several subdivisions.
Yes.
Pa, when you did those subdivisions, what kind of work was that? What did you actually do? You were working as a contractor, right?
It was put in water systems, paving. I didn't build any houses. I didn't build houses, but
you were maintaining the land that you were living on still, right?
well, it didn't take much maintenance. We didn't have. It was mainly just the farm stuff.
Okay. How much of the land is still farmland?
I don't think any of it.
Oh, okay. Not even an acre?
I don't. This is a different century. You don't farm in this area anymore.
Okay. Would you say your company or your business that you built, is it still running, or did you retire?
Oh, retired.
Yeah. When did you retire?
Very incrementally over the past 10 years.
Probably. Well, I quit building the subdivisions, so back, I don't know, I guess in maybe 90s or something. Or I built my house in 1980. And I think we moved in 1984 or something like that.
I wanted to, because I'm not from this area, I'm actually from Sonoma County, but I love this area and I'm trying to set down roots here. I've lived here for 4 years. Could you tell me more about the state of Mitchell Farms now in terms of the development and how that might be different than what we know about the property that your great-grandparents bought?
Well, he bought that property. It was 160 acres, and it was $1,600 in gold coin that he paid for it. That's on the deed. And that was in like 1866, around those days. And it was signed by Ulysses S. Grant, remember that, on the deed. And he was, like I said, he was a teamster, and they were hauling anything that had to be hauled. In those days it was hauled like hay and grain and wood, and then I know in the wintertime they did ice. They hauled ice down from the ice house up there, and it's somewhere up there in the mountains, and they I guess hauled it mainly. The market was probably Sacramento, like restaurants and so on, that wanted ice. And see, they didn't have mechanical refrigeration until about 1890.
Oh, wow.
And this was way back in probably 1870s and 80. And they had on the farm, they had, my grandfather had, I think we had 3 or 4 very large barns that he had for his teams, because they were, you got a bunch of horses, you have to have a place to put them in. So they had, I think it was 3, or I think it was 4 actually, but, and they'd, so they had to have hay crops, so they had hay, they raised hay to feed them, because you had to feed them in the wintertime. And then he had, I can remember at least 3 of the barns that were still there when I was a little kid. And we, I guess, I don't know whether the business tapered off on the ice, but he planted a vineyard in 1918 or 1919 because they brought water into this area, and this was it was on the north branch of the American, and they brought water down. In fact, his office used to be right there on the corner of Greenback and Hazel. Mm-hmm. It was on the north west corner. They had a big old clubhouse, and it that was this North Fork Ditch Company, and then well, then see, Citrus Heights and Orangevale and Fair Oaks, they bought the water from this source. The diversion was up around Auburn somewhere, and it came down on a canal. And then there's still the reservoir up on the near the end of Oak Avenue. That and then they changed the name of it to the San Juan Water District, and so it became San Juan Water. And then Citrus Heights and Orangevale, I guess they purchased water then from, I don't know what their connection was there, but that was where the source of the water was, this reservoir, the Hinkle Reservoir.
So you said he probably put in a vineyard around 1918 or around there?
They brought water down to our place around 1919, and that let them plant a vineyard. Had 80 acres of grapes, wine grapes, and they had this area, including right where we are, used to be at that time, or this was like in the 1910 on, or somewhere along in there. Probably earlier than that, the climate was particularly conducive to orchards and citrus. So they planted big orchards. They planted orchards of I forget some of the names. They had names, but they all because they had brought the water down. They had to have water, and they had citrus. And in fact, that's how Orangevale got its name, and Citrus Heights. That's how their name come from, is the fact that they grew so much citrus. And then in 1932, I think it was, they had a severe freeze. It wiped out all the orchards that were not protected with some kind of frost protection. And so that ended the era of citrus growth in this area. And it used to be when I was little, and my mother let me out of the house, we'd go out and we'd skate around on the creeks because they had ice on them, and they were never had ice before, and we'd play around on the creeks on the ice, and then the climate changed, I guess, and there used to be a pretty heavy rainfall in the wintertime those days. And the creeks had water flowing in them all the time. They didn't dry up like they do today in the wintertime. And that ended up that the citrus just didn't, it didn't work out economically, and so they shifted away from, or at least my grandfather shifted 80 acres over to wine grapes. And so when I was growing up, we used to be out playing grape fights with the truck drivers, and they come in to haul the wine away, or the grapes away to go to the winery. And he had 80 acres of grapes, and they did pretty well for many years until, things gradually changed and the vineyard changed. And I think that as far as the weather is concerned, this is still an ideal area for wine grapes. But you got all, like our vineyard now is 160 houses or something around there, 180.
Did you guys make wine?
I made wine.
Did you drink wine during Prohibition?
Yeah, well, I was 8, 10 years old when I started making wine, and they been at it ever since.
Do you know the winery you guys would send the grapes to?
Yeah, the buildings are still there down on Folsom Boulevard. There was the see, they had a lot of wine grapes across the river, and I used to drive the truck down or haul the grapes down on the truck, and there was two of them on Folsom Boulevard. The buildings are still there. Forget the name of them now, but and there was, I think, one right across the river. We'd go down and cross the bridge there at Fair Oaks and head down to the wineries. And we had, in those days, they hauled the grapes in 50-pound lug boxes.
Oh, wow.
So you had the truck you'd load with boxes, and I don't think you even had time down. You just stacked the boxes up on the truck. And
I read somewhere that it was your idea that to get rid of the grapes.
Well, it got to the point where it wasn't profitable like it had been previously, and there was a period in there where prices weren't all that good as far as having grapes ready for a winery, that type of grape. Now that was not your what do you call it, edible grape.
Table grape.
Table grapes. It was maybe have a few vines, but it was all wine. wine grapes that did very well for many years, especially during Prohibition.
Do you still grow your own just for fun and to have some on the property, or is that long gone?
Oh, it's long gone, yeah.
There are some grapes.
I don't harvest them or make wine out of them or do anything.
But you could if you wanted to.
Oh, I guess so. It's so much easier now to just go to the store.
I was really interested about your great-grandpa being a Mason, and I also read that the brick building on the property, it was still around when you were a kid. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
The brick, when they brought water down, they brought it's right now, you may not know the exact area I'm talking about, but it was SMUD today has, in fact, I sold them the property in 1950, I think it was. But they have a big transformer yard there, and I sold them the property. And they have a driveway, comes in off Sunrise, and they work out of that. That serves all this area up here too.
Do you know why you guys took down the brick building?
Neighbors stole all the bricks.
Oh, wow. That's horrible. But I loved reading about you discovering the wine under the floorboards when you were
Empty
serving.
bottles. It wasn't wine, it was empty bottles.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when we built the golf course. And we were grading for one of the fairways, and the floor of the house where the brick house had been, the bricks were all gone. And the floor was all just covered with dirt and everything, but we had a cut there going through there of maybe a couple feet at least, and so we found a bunch of wine bottles that had to have been there before 18. I'd say 1890 or something. And the bottles were they were pretty much like they are today, a little bit different, and they had. Of course, they were stained and everything, but they were still wine bottles.
Mm-hmm. So, is there vegetation, fruits, or vegetables that you guys still grow that you do harvest and consume? No? Yeah?
Long gone.
Yeah.
We've got the pomegranate tree.
Oh.
Well, there's a few trees, yeah.
So.
There's 160 houses there now instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say I'm not from the area, so I don't know what Mitchell Farms looks like now. The only thing I know is reading about the history of the property, so that's all I know in my mind.
That's about all you can do because it has been developed into houses and commercial and like the there's the area, well, it's all either commercial along Greenback now, and we used to own it all the way from Fair Oaks Boulevard to Sunrise.
And I also read was it the house that you lived in is where Sprouts is now?
The location's about the same.
Yeah, yeah. Just to contextualize it for everyone.
Yeah.
Was that the house you were born in?
Yeah.
Were your children born there too, or were they born in hospital?
Oh, they were born in the hospital, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many children did you have?
3.
3. And are they still around?
My oldest daughter died from cancer.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My brother still lives up in Placerville, and I live nearby here.
Oh, that's good to know.
There's been a lot of things change over the years, and of course some I remember, some I don't. But well, my sister and I, she's I don't know, a couple years older than me. We used to walk home from school. We didn't. My folks would drive us up in the morning, and we'd walk back down to our home.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you about that. You and your sister, you guys walking to and from school, and then possible places you like to hang out, either in nature or it could be a local hangout spot. Does that sound good?
Well, sure, it sounds good, but we didn't have much time for hang out. It was mostly get home, do the chores.
That makes sense. I think I'll still ask it though, because that'd be
Ask me
important.
anything you want. That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
If you're gonna lean forward, let me move this back a little.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh. I just want to make this as worthwhile for you too.
Well, I'm happy to do it for you and for the Orangevale people. I have a lot of friends up here. What's the fuzzy thing on that for?
I don't know. Ken's the expert.
Sometimes I interview people outdoors and there's a wind.
Oh,
This keeps it from
from sounding, huh?
sounding like wind.
Really? I was curious about, you don't see it every day.
No,
But the thing I think I'm learning from you most right now, and also by reading about you from Larry's script that he forwarded to me, is just that it seemed like your family and you were, it's admirable the way you guys adapted to the times. As far back as the
It's,
1800s, yeah.
It's, I'd say adaptable, sure, but it was survivable mostly.
That makes sense. Well, you guys, it seems like you've been very successful. Yeah.
The area has been good to us, and we can. And I hear on the news, like back east, where they have horrible landslides and floods and big storms, and I think that all of us need to be thankful for where we are right at the moment, because there's a lot of people that are not as fortunate as we are.
Yeah, it's luck too, because your family, they grew grapes. So it's luck too, because with the crops that your family was growing, they were luckier than a lot of the people around here during the big freeze too. Yeah.
Freeze wiped out a lot of things, a lot of wealth.
Okay, I didn't know you were recording. Have we been recording? Oh, okay, I had no idea.
because you're interviewing.
Oh, I thought, okay. Sorry.
Something I do wrong?
No, I just didn't know we were recording already. Okay, let's backtrack. Let's talk about your time at Roberts School.
Well, when I first started there, Ruth Kirsten, she was a wonderful lady, wonderful teacher, and she, I guess, helped me more than anything. And the school was one large wooden building, and it had a petition in the middle. It had a belfry with a big bell that the teacher could ring the bell with a rope, and that would be the time for coming in or going out or whatever. And Ruth Kirsten was, she was the only teacher I ever had there. And she was, I don't know how long she was there after I left, but she was certainly the best you could have for a teacher. And the school was, wasn't a big school. I think my graduating class was like 7 people, and we had there was when I first went there, they made some improvements over the years while I was there, but there was back of the building didn't have a bath or anything in the bathroom, and there was a toilet behind the building, outdoor toilet, and old style, and then there was the old original school building was still there when I went there, and it was way down in the back corner, and it was I don't know, of course it was big enough for the area for which it was built. And then I guess they tore it down, and in the school building itself, I don't know how many square feet it was, I don't remember, but it was, excuse me, it was a good sized school building. It had a petition in the middle, and I think that my whole class, 8 grades all together, used one half of the building. And I think the other half was for storage or something. Anyway, after I graduated and went on to high school, the building, I think they may have used it for a while, but in those days, this was many years afterwards, I guess, after I left there, the district had got another building or something. They moved to, I think, down Kenneth, or I think it was, they changed, anyway, they quit using the building for a classroom, and there was, in those days, the fire department had a fire engine, and they had, I guess they came out of Orangeville or somewhere. Anyway, there was had a fire engine, and they would use volunteers for the crew. And I don't know how they called up the volunteers, but when there was a fire, they would maybe sound alarms or something. Anyway, the crew gathered and went to the fire, and they got paid, I think it was $6 or $7 for a day's work, or whatever you call it. And there was a guy, I don't know whether he had been a former student or not, but anyway, he set fire to the building and burned it up to get the $6. And so that was the end of that building, but it was a good, great big building. And then, I don't know, I guess they abandoned it as a school property and sold it off, because there's a residence there now.
Did you know that I actually live on that corner?
Which one?
On the corner of Kenneth and Greenback?
Which corner?
Across the street from the property.
The south side?
It's on the same side of Greenback. It's just, I'm on Milky Way, so I'm on a little cul-de-sac right off of Kenneth.
Oh, you,
So I'm, I guess, north.
oh, it's north of Greenback?
Yeah.
And what, east or west of Kenneth? See, Kenneth wasn't there when I was there.
Okay. It's it's west.
Well, it'd be the west side, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that, there were some people there, I think their name was Turnbull.
Okay, Turnbull.
Okay.
I've seen that last person's name in my mail. That's so funny.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Turnbull's had that place, and they were right on the west side, and Turnbull was, he did some kind of woodwork or something. I don't remember what it was. Yeah, things change.
Yeah. Do you have any memorable friends from your time at the Roberts School?
Guess they're all gone.
What about the teacher's son?
What about them?
Weren't you friends with him?
Yeah. I haven't seen him since school days, but I was friends.
What was his name?
Frederick
Okay.
Kirsten.
Okay.
Now, take all this stuff with a grain of salt. My memory may have faltered a little bit as far as trying to keep track of everything, so some of those things I've told you may not be true.
And so, you would walk back to your home with your sister all the way from the corner of Greenback and Kenneth?
From the schoolhouse to home.
Yeah.
And home then was at Sunrise and Greenback. And my dad had a garage there at Fair Oaks and Greenback, but Fair Oaks didn't go through in those days. And we'd walk down from school to the shop. Sometimes you could get a ride, sometimes you couldn't. But they'd always give us a ride in the morning to get up to the school. They didn't have buses then, or at least Roberts School District didn't. I don't know, maybe some did.
And the gentleman who burned down the school, his name is Dickie Baker. Does that ring a bell?
I don't know his name.
You didn't know his name? Okay.
How do you know his name?
Because he's mentioned a lot in the interviews, and I've had to study the interviews.
Oh, really?
And people like to talk about him. He's like a local folk hero. Well, okay, anti-hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Focal hero. Burned the house down.
He also burned down the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was clubhouse. Then it turned from a school to a clubhouse. It was school when I went there. But yeah, things changed in the years.
So I know you mentioned you were spent most of your time when you weren't at school on the farm, but was there any places that you like to kick back with your friends or your siblings?
No, I went, gosh, so many years I was nowhere near this area. When I went back east of where I was in the Navy, and then I was in Naval Reserve, and in fact, I'm still in the Naval Reserve, even at my age. I'm a lieutenant commander in the Navy on inactive retired duty, and which I'm proud of. And then, yeah, when I come back, after I had been back, got out of school, and I got a general engineering contractor's license, and that's when I used to put in subdivisions, and we'd. I was just a small contractor, it wasn't a big deal.
Are there any we'd recognize today? Any subdivisions still around that you put up?
Well, there's, yeah, most of them are further away than right here, but there's one right down south on Hazel. In fact, it's the first subdivision south of Greenback on Hazel Avenue on the west side. I put that in. And then I did Hoffman, Ansel Hoffman, a place down there near closer to us, and I put in Hoffman Lane, which is still an old-time subdivision. But most of the work I did was further away because there just wasn't that much work going on here, and you have to go where the work is. So.
And luckily, it's not too far to find work from here. Meaning we're far enough away from a lot of the busier parts of the county.
It depends on what kind of work you're doing.
Oh, that makes sense.
There's some things close by, and there's some things a long ways away. It depends on what you want to do.
Were you involved in the building of Folsom Dam?
Yeah, I worked on the dam. I had equipment. It was in like 52 or 53, I think it was. And they had, it was, I don't know, like a 4 or 5 year project. And I had equipment, heavy equipment, contractor's equipment at that time. And in fact, I got a job. See, they used to have a rock source down the river, down closer to end of Hazel, I think, or something. And then they had to get aggregate for the dam, for the concrete, and so they had a rock plant right on the right-hand side of the road just before you get to the Folsom Bridge. It's right down over the bank there as you're driving today. And that was a big plant there where they produced concrete grade aggregate from the river, because there was plenty of gravel down the river, like where all the dredge tailings were and all that stuff. There was plenty of aggregate to build the dam. They didn't run out of aggregate, and it was high quality. And I used to maintain the haul road that went from the one up here is right on along the right-hand side of Greenback, and it went down to, I think it was like where where end of Hazel or someplace. Anyways, down the river a ways, and I maintained the road for the haul trucks that hauled aggregate up from down there up to here. So I'd be on there all day grading back and forth, keep the road up. And they had big Euclid end dumps that they were hauling aggregate with, and they'd haul it up here and they'd crush it or do some screen it or something here. I don't know exactly what they did, but I maintained the haul road for all the haul trucks. And
you probably saw the gold dredges in operation, didn't you?
We had one. My dad invested in a small, it was a good-sized dredge that I was in the Navy. I'd gone to the Navy, and I was here, and he got invested money in this thing and with some other people, and they had gold dredge lands up in Loomis, outside on the east side of Loomis. There's gold-bearing gravel, and they I don't know, a couple of guys come along and they talked him into going into this thing. So he had the car business, and that kept him busy, but he did put money into it. And so he financed it, and they had a dredge, and that dredge, it was a good sized dredge. I think it was dragline. I think it was a yard and a half. And they worked that land up there, and then this partnership kind of, I don't know, fell apart. So my dad ended up with all this stuff, which meant I ended up with trying to figure out something to do with it. So I did some dredging. And then we had I got acquainted with a mining engineer, and he had a connection with the Natomas Company. And so we moved the dredge down, and we actually worked down there at Natomas Company where their yard is, or used to be. I know it's all subdivision now. And we'd, this mining engineer, he had experience with a lot of mining and stuff, and so the gold recovery can be a very complicated thing. It can be very easy if you have big nuggets to play with, but the gold concentrate that the dredge company, and at one time the Thomas Company had 14 bucket line dredges working, and they had huge amounts of refined ore that they'd bring into a concentrating location, and then they would concentrate it and recover the gold, and then in the process of concentrating gold, you can end up with extremely fine, like sand, and the only way you can recover that is with cyanide. So they built, and I actually ran this cyanide plant there at the Thomas Company, and they'd, with cyanide, you basically, you have gold, and you dissolve the gold with cyanide, and then you have this solution, and then you turn that to another solution, and that precipitates the gold out to actual nugget, or like nuggets. And so I ran that thing for a year or so, and then I think we got our ore used up, and so they'd take there used to be a big mining company down on the Bay Area, on the bay before, just about where you come up to let's see, what's that town? Anyway, they ended up, we worked their tailings and got recovered gold from that. And then I guess that was, I guess I don't remember what year it was, but this mining engineer that, I don't know whether you're interested in hearing all this stuff or not.
Oh, we are.
Well, this mining engineer had a big job going in Mexico. So he got me to go down there to Mexico, and I set up a dredge there, a gold dredge in I think it was Yaqui country. And I got him, my job was mainly to get the thing up and going and leave. So I didn't stay there and run it, but I heard they did pretty well. But I was glad to get home.
Did you ever work in the McClellan area?
Doing what?
Oh, I just assumed because of your service that you might be able to have an opportunity to work out there if someone had mentioned something.
Well, when I got back, after I got sold the Gold Dredge and got back. I did well, I had a contractor's license, so I and I had equipment, and I worked on that. You know where, on McClellan, you're down there in McClellan, and you go down Watt Avenue, I think it's Watt, and you come to that street that runs in front of McClellan, and there's a underpass there under the railroad track. Yeah, well, I worked on, I think Granite had a contract there redoing that underpass, and they had me down there working on, I had my excavator there, and they'd, because I remember seeing, I could look up and see the Watt Avenue and the paving when I was down in the excavation doing the work. And anyway, I went through, they were lowering the underpass is what it was, so I guess so they could get bigger trucks or something under that railroad tracks. Anyway, so I'm down there digging this stuff out and loading it into trucks, and we're hauling it out. And I come to a layer with willow leaves. And this was 30 feet down. And the willow leaves were not, they were old willow. I mean, they'd been there a million years maybe, but there was willow leaves down 30 feet down at the bottom of this underpass. Where I thought it was kind of interesting.
Haven't you come across a lot of sort of interesting things digging up stuff in the dirt, huh, Pa?
You do. There's a lot of things that are covered up. People don't realize there's, in this area, when my grandfather acquired this, well, I guess when this, see, the Spanish took this area, had all this area, and they had it for years. And I guess the Spanish government made grants to their favorite people or something, because there was these land grants, and the property we own now was actually had at one time been a part of a land grant. And I don't know what I have never been interested in researching the politics or history or that about the politics, but there was this was Spanish territory, and it had I guess they didn't have the knowledge about the gold or whatever, but they had, I think they went as far as Bodega Bay or fort. What is it? There's a fort above Bodega Bay. Anyway, they had Spanish buildings and things, and they had on the land grant. And there's some of these things that I've never been able to find out easily, but, excuse me, somehow the Spanish must have had a pretty sophisticated part of the government that controlled their outlying areas, because they had a survey on our property that was Spanish, not ours. And I never did figure out how that happened, but then all that changed, I guess, around Civil War time, when they had, they gave up the Spanish land grants, and they had, and our property had been in the Spanish land grant. And then they had property, of course, all the way down the coast too, which I'm not familiar with. But anyway.
You had another interesting job that you told me about with the water main, that they were new water main in Marshall that they were installing? Can you tell us about that?
I had this equipment. I used to do work for the water district, well, for anybody that needed holes dug and stuff. And the water, which is now it's San Juan Water Company, but it was the North Fork Ditch Company. And the office used to be right there in the corner, Hazel, this street out here, Hazel and Greenback, on the northeast, northwest corner. It was a big building. And they had an office in the basement of that. The top of the thing, I think, was used as a dance hall or something. I never went there, but the head of the guy that was the head of the North Fork Ditch Company, he was the controlled all the water around the Orangevale and everything, so he would hire me to go when they had something had to be excavated or whatever. So Fair Oaks got I don't know, they got money from something, land grant or something. Anyway, so they put in a new water main, or that was what they wanted to do. They got the money for it. And they replaced the old one, which was, I guess, was small. And the main, it ran down from the Hinkle Reservoir, and it came down, and it crossed, you know, here on Greenback, Greenback goes, and it used to go around, went north on Greenback. It ended here. It used to go north up to that street that goes down across back to Folsom. There's a bridge down there. You go across. Well, the Fair Oaks water main starts up at Hinkle, which is way up there, quite a ways, and it comes down, and it follows that canyon, and then comes out. It comes back up, just up, half a mile down here. Comes back up to what is the distance. It would have been the area from the end of Greenback, where it runs into Maine, down to Maine, where you get down to what's that street there? Anyway, the next street down, they had a meter house there, and so they were putting a new pipeline in from up at the Hinkle Reservoir, and it come all the way down. Am I boring you?
I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Anyway, they putting in a new pipeline, and this was a 42-inch pipeline, which 42 would be about like so, I guess, you know. And it was new pipe, and the pipe was manufactured in Sacramento. At that, there's a pipe company, or used to be, where you come out 16th Street, and you went over the thing for the underpass for the railroad. Well, on the left side there used to be this old Sacramento Pipe Company, and or Sacramento, I think that's what it was. And I knew them. I used to buy stuff from them, and they manufactured this pipe, and this pipe, it'd be about the size of this table, as far as, it was 42-inch, I'm pretty sure. And they were replacing a smaller defective pipe. And so they had got the job started, and the pipe company had manufactured all the pipe. And they brought it down, and they got down to that canyon there, right at the end of Greenback, there's the canyon you cross. Well, they got it down to there, and they got it back up to the top of the ridge, which would be the one out this way, where what's there in there now? There's a commercial up on the top there at the end of Greenback, where Greenback runs into what Main, I guess, or anywhere where it ends Greenback. There's an intersection there, and anyway, that's where I know we were particular area we were working on, and it was from where you got to the top of the ridge, and then and there was no houses, no nothing out there. It was all bare ground, and it was called Plains, or it was called something, but it was an area that was unpopulated. It was just open, hadn't been developed or anything. So this particular section, it was the last section to put in. They'd done all the stuff, and they brought the water line down, and this started right shortly after where Greenback runs into, what is it, Madison, I guess. Yeah, Madison. That's where this section started, this particular job we were working on. And remember this, now we're talking about pipe, this big around. And so they had somebody else do the ditching and that, and and they had, the pipe was there, I think they had installed the pipe in this open ditch. It was ready to fill with water and backfill, and it was that whole section that ran from Greenback clear down to Main over on that side. And so this was one of those unusual times, and so somebody ahead of me had installed the pipe, and this pipe, I don't know, you don't see it anymore, but in those days they would use tapered coupling, and that consisted of and these pipes were probably 30 feet long, and they're this diameter, and so instead of having, when you have pieces of pipe, whatever length they are, and you're making a pipeline, you have to join them some way. Well, today, I guess it is the most common way to do it is with a weld. You put the two together and you weld the thing there, and it's done. In those days, this was prior to where you had this easy portable welding. They used a tapered joint, and the pipe, each pipe had a taper on the end of it. One was a tapered in, and the other was tapered out. So when you were building the pipeline, you had to have one of them would be anchored, and then you would drive the other pipe, the end of the pipe, into the tapered end of that pipe. So you had the big end and the little end, and you would drive these in. And they had guys with like a battering ram, and they'd get about 10, 12 guys on each side of it, and they would all have something like a harness or something they would hold and would fasten to the pipe. And then when the crane would drop the pipe over and they'd enter the tapered joints, then this crew would get to work and they'd pound on the end of that pipe, the open end, and they'd drive it in. And they had asphalt melted tar or asphalt stuff, you know, to seal anything from cracks, I guess, and they did a good job. Because when they would go through and everything worked right, they'd with that taper joint, and they'd drive the thing in, and when it got as far as it'd go, I guess, they'd move on to the next one. So they're starting up here at Greenback, right at the intersection, or where it come up to the top of the hill, and they're headed down, and there's a beautiful area on that area out there. It's north of, it's east of Maine. It's like an open plain. So anyway, they got the thing up to the top, and of course then you have to fill it with water. And so they to see if there are leaks or whatever. So they're filling the pipe with water, and they had the pipe all connected between this end of Greenback and down at Maine, where it was down at the end there where Maine is, and they had it all connected, and they were filling it, and it was, you can picture a pipe this diameter, you know, it's going to, no matter how big a pipe you have feeding into it, it's going to take a little while to fill it with water, because that's a lot of water. So anyway, this particular day, I'm up there with the excavator, and there was all the other equipment. The guys, I don't know, the ditch was already dug, and they'd already coupled the pipe together, because when they put this tapered joints together, you did it dry. You didn't have any water around it. And this length of pipe must have got about half full or something. It was, and this was just bare pipe laying in the ditch, and it was getting a little water in it, but it wasn't full. And we got a thunderstorm. It was a cloudburst, and because of the nature of that area out there, you can picture it, all that water flowed down and come to this ditch. Well, naturally, it filled the ditch up. All these half-filled pipes or quarter-filled pipes were laying in the bottom of the ditch. And so up they floated those, and they were, I think, 30, 40-foot lengths. And the end would come up, and then that would open the thing up back down here, and then splash down in the water. And the old guy that was in charge of it, he just had a fit. He was in bed. And they ended up that all the sections along there floated up, and they had to go back in and pump the ditch out. And then they had to come back in with welders now. This time they couldn't use the taper because too much had gone on, and they had to come back, and they'd cut a hole like this was anyway, say this was the pipe, and they'd cut a hole, and the two pipes come together like this. They cut a hole in here, and they'd go down one section and do a weld from the inside. This was an inside the pipe. The welder had to crawl in, and had to breathe the air in the pipe anyway. To put all this stuff back together, he'd cut a hole, and the welder would go in, and we'd wait around up here in case we had to lift something. And they'd have he'd make his weld, and you can imagine you're sitting inside of a pipe this diameter. You can picture what that's like, and you're welding the pipe together, the two pipes. Anyway, so he'd do that, and it took time, and so they welded each joint then from the ones they used to just put like that. They had to weld them together, and I don't know. and I think it took us 2 or 3 weeks to go through that stretch up there, where it was also, otherwise it would have just been that day filled with water and it'd be done. And the old guy in charge, he was just sick. But that's what happens, is everything's timing.
Do you remember about what year that might have been?
Yeah, let's see. It would have been in probably about 18 or 19. Let's see. Probably. I could guess, but I can't tell you for sure.
No, that's okay. We've been doing a lot of research for the water company, down to the materials of the pipes that they've used throughout its existence. Do you remember the material you were replacing and the material of the pipes that you were putting into?
I don't follow you.
What the pipes were made of.
Yeah.
Oh, the pipe itself?
Yeah.
Steel pipe.
Steel? That's what you're putting in? Was it, were you replacing steel too?
It was an old one. Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, we got it together a couple of weeks later. But that was the most tragic thing I ever saw. Those things that just, you can imagine a pipe this size, 40 feet long, it comes up, breaks open, and splashes down into the ditch again.
Wonder why they didn't take the rainwater and put the rainwater into the pipe.
Oh, it was impossible. You didn't have any control over that. No, they did the best they could, but and the rainwater was all mud and gravel too, coming in off the surface of but on those pipes that go up, and I guess the water would enter the end, and then they'd splash down into the thing. And I had to lift each one of those out. They had to clean them, and then I had to put them back in, and they would go, and the welder would be down there. He'd be there a couple hours, I guess, on each one. But, people like you don't have any idea something like that took place. I know I didn't until I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any memorable big projects towards the end of your career?
No, my career hasn't ended.
Towards the end of your retirement, I mean.
I'm not retired.
Okay.
No, well, I never did any big jobs. I worked on a lot of them, like Folsom Dam, but I never did it. In fact, I did the last work on Folsom Dam on, where you go out, that road that goes on the top of the dam, it goes out and it runs into another street, a Folsom Street, and then there's a dam on your left there. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a earthen dam. And then you go up a little further, and there's that funny looking place that sells, I don't know, on the left side there.
Are you talking about the purple place?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's on the north side. Yeah, okay. That dam, I don't remember what they call it, but it has the one just before you get to the purple place. And that was the last work on the Folsom Dam that had to be done, and it was there was a company from Idaho, I think it was, that the government had hired to drill down through the dam into the bedrock below, which was well, I guess granite and quartz was is what the dam's built on. I think what it is there. Anyway, whatever it was, this company was from Utah or Idaho, and the government had them drill down and take samples. And I used to have some of them, maybe as long as this table. They were 3/4 inch cores, and they would drill through the rock. And they were, I don't know what they were looking for, I guess just to see maybe how strong the rock was. And I don't know, I don't think I have any of them left, but I used to have, I think they were inch or 3/4 or 7/8 or something. This company had drilled that whole dam, and there's probably, I guess, I suppose maybe 20 feet apart for the length of the dam. And they'd go down through the dam material itself and then into the rock below, and they'd pull these samples out because I guess they wanted to see what was underneath there or have a permanent record of it or something. And and after they got through, all that had to be cleaned up and smoothed up looking, and I did that. That was the last work that was done on the dam. Anyway.
If you could, would you change anything?
Probably everything. I'm sorry, I probably wouldn't, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
I liked hearing your input on the grapes and how it'd still be feasible to grow them in this area.
Well, that's an agricultural thing. That's, that's not, there's places where you can't do that, grapes or anything else, and then there's places like this where you can, and they do very well here. And it has to do with the, I guess, type of soil or you're using, but it certainly has to do with the weather, and it has to do with the, probably, temperatures and things, and also it has a lot to do with parasites.
Do you have any final thoughts or information you'd like to share about your stories related to survivability, adaptability?
Ask me something simple.
Okay. Do you have any grandkids?
Yeah.
What do you like to do with them?
Oh, about once a year, look at them. Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, do you want to wrap up? And, unless there's anything else you wanted to share, did you want to wrap up our interview?
Here, your pleasure. So
I have a question for
Yeah.
you. Okay, so I have a question for you, Pa. How does it feel? I know over the years, it's been strange for me when I would leave, like I went away to college and come back, and the property that I grew up on, the property that you still live on, had been changed, right? Pieces of it would change over time. There was a small part that a little shopping center went in, and then there was, and the really big change when we moved from the house that was right there where Sprouts is, up to the house that you built, the adobe house. Big change was the orchard, the fruit orchard that we didn't have anymore, and how that was really hard because I loved that stuff so much. I want to know, how do you feel now, Pa, when you are at home or when I drive you home and we drive through the property? How do you sometimes just look at it and think, gosh, I can't believe how different it is? Do you have feelings about how it is now to see everything that is on the property?
Well, I guess as simple as the answer is, I'm glad I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm glad
I
to.
can't tell you anything else.
Well, thank you for meeting me, and
Well, I hope it wasn't boring and monotonous, so.
I don't think so. You kept me on my toes, especially in the beginning.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Glad I could do something you enjoyed, you and